All right, good night again, everybody. All right. So I think tonight's session is about agro-processing. So we're going to talk a bit about agro-processing and its role in food security. As we know, food security is very important. So we'll discuss that without further ado. All right. So what is agro-processing, right? Agro-processing basically refers to the conversion of raw agricultural products such as fruits, vegetables, grains, meat, herbs, and those things into a finished or a semi-finished product, right? That is ready to consume, or you can actually do further processing. So some example of agro-processing, you have canned vegetables. And when we're talking canned, we're not only talking about the can that we import, but in terms of using your mason jar and doing canning at home so that you can have your vegetables in a fresh, in a preserved state for a long period of time. So you can your carrots, you can dice them, can them in a mason jar, hot water bath, and that process, a pasteurization process. Can them, seal them, and have them stored away for a while. You can can your tomato sauce, anything, so you can ensure that you have food security. Because food security is built on 4 pillars, right? We're talking about being able to utilize, being able to have access, because they can have food available, but you do not have access to that food, right? Access to that food, and it must be stable, right? So things like fruit juices, right? You can bottle them. Most of the fruit juices that we actually import, because we create fruit juices here or make fruit juices, but we don't do any sort of pasteurization or preservative or preserve it so that it can stay in the fridge a longer time. I normally see individuals who make fruit juice after certain days. Obviously, they have to go and take it off the shelf because, well, out the fridge, because it's either start having change in color, change in taste, and those sort of things. But we have to think in, you know, we have to think ahead in terms of adding preservatives safely, which we will talk about in this session, adding preservative and also pasteurizing. Once you know the process of pasteurizing these fruit juices, you can have them on the shelf for a longer period of time rather than have them in the fridge and they cannot stay beyond 5 days, 6 days, and so on, right? There's also things like dairy products where you can take the raw milk and turn it into things like cheese, yogurt, butter, providing customers or consumer diverse products. So instead of having the regular butter, you can maybe add some mango to it and you have a mango butter, or you can maybe add some herbs and spices or whatever your desire would be, right? Meat products, turning raw meats into things like sausage. I know we grew up in a society where we have excess amount of pork. We normally can those pork and those sort of things. So cured meats, frozen packaged meat, there are folks who are involved in making things like hams, fish ham, chicken ham, fish burgers, fish patties, and all these sort of things, right? So by transforming perishable agricultural goods, agro-processing add value to these raw material, creating a wider range of products for consumers. So the other role in agro-processing in food security, it boosts food availability. One, when you process of raw produce, you extend the shelf life. So you either going to take some sweet potato, turn it into flour, some breadfruit, turn it into flour, some milk, turn it into cheese. You can take your sorrel and turn it into sorrel liqueur, and then take the remaining and turn it into jams, jellies, sauces, and so on. So you also try to create products in a sustainable manner in terms of utilizing everything so that there will not be any waste, right? So one of the role in agro-processing is to increase the shelf life, right? So this would actually boost the availability of food. So there's a time when you would have no breadfruit, but you have breadfruit flour, and you can take that breadfruit flour and make maybe cookies, you can make bread, you can make cakes, you can make pastries, you can make porridge, whatever you desire to make with it, right? So especially when there's fruits that are seasonal, you can actually dry them and have them. Just like we do with sorrel. There's sorrel all year round, because sorrel, you can either freeze them, as I do because I don't like dry sorrel. You can freeze them and have them for a longer period of time, or you can dry them, dehydrate them, and have them, for a longer period of time. So even though they're seasonal crops, you have them all year round, right? Access to seasonal food, just like I just mentioned, things like mangoes, you can dry mangoes and you can make mango flour, or you can dehydrate mangoes, you can make mango leather, or whatever you would like your desire to do with mangoes, mango ice cream, what your desire. You have excess tomatoes, you can make sun-dried tomatoes, which is very lovely, especially when you're making your pasta. You can make even pasta sauce with your excess tomatoes, right? So you can make products like jam, sauces, dried fruits, which can be stored and even consumed when they're out of season, right? Agro-processing also supports rural economies because it creates employment. Let's say you are a housewife or you retire, you're home and you want to generate income, because we know that sometimes when they try to hit us and knock us down with those bills. So you actually want to generate additional income for your home. You can think about starting agro-processing small. If we get into things like pepper sauce, let's make the pepper sauce be something of a difference, either a mango pepper sauce or sorrel pepper sauce or passion fruit pepper sauce, and so on. Because I mean, on our shelf here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, I think we have mastered pepper sauce and green season, and we need to take that skill and add it to other products, other crops that we can create other products from these other crops, right? Also, with agro-processing, you create an income for the farmer, because one, if you're going to do banana flour, you have to get the banana from the farmer. If you're going to do pumpkin flour, you would obviously have to get the pumpkin from the farmer. So it's also an income generation for the farmer. Right. So the other role in food security, the other role in agro-processing in food security, we reduce waste, right? So we minimize things like post-harvest loss. So agro-processing techniques like drying or fermenting help to reduce the amount of food waste due to spoilage. So let's say your husband is farming, or you and your husband farming, and you have excessive amount, or sometimes you have a lot of small potatoes because they did not do that well, and you don't have pigs to feed it, and just dumping it would be a loss. Like, it's just hard sometimes after you spend so much time in the field and these small potatoes remaining, you can utilize them. You could actually grate them, make things like frozen pudding mix and have them in your fridge, or even sell them, because let's face it, pudding is something that sweet potato pudding is something that we actually love here in St. Vincent, and I'm sure the wider Caribbean. And oftentimes, it's not something that we would get up and go home and make, especially if you're in a household where everybody is working, right? You have to remember, if you're going to enter the field or the area of agro-processing, convenience is what sell. You understand? If you go to Massey, you would see, for example, even Massey St. Lucia, I would see things like those fish accra, the fish cakes. The batter is there, so you can buy the batter and you can take it home and fry it. I know in Trinidad, Massey, you can find things like the cheese that are made into a paste and all these things. You can take them home. And so convenience sell. Here you would go into Massey, you would see rotisserie chicken, you would see a bowl with cut fruits or salad or something. So convenience sell. So that is something that a housewife who is, a housewife, a career-driven woman who also have to go home and create a meal would be able to grab that. So in the case of things like a pudding mix, you would be able to just, people grab that and go home, and there you would have nice sweet potato pudding without having to put in the work. So you have to think, if you want to get into agro-processing, you must think outside of the box, right? So as I was saying, it helped to minimize post-harvest loss. Agro-processing techniques like drying, fermenting help to reduce the amount of food waste due to spoilage, especially in countries where infrastructure for fresh food preservation is very limited, especially if you don't have place for storage, right? You need to turn it into some value-added product, right? Utilization of byproduct, like the byproducts that are remaining after creating a product. You can either use a pulp to make compost for your garden. If you have leftover pulp that can be used to make things like jams or jellies for your homes, these are things that you can do. You have to think about reducing as much waste as possible to generate an income, because you would actually spend less. If you take that jams or you take those pulp and you make some sort of jam for the home, that would reduce you having to going out and buy jam for the household, right? So the definition of food processing. So food processing involves transformation of raw materials into consumable products through physical, chemical, and biological means. This is basically used to enhance food shelf life and the quality and safety. So you could have a basic preparation in terms of things like cleaning and sorting and cutting. So sometimes you go to the supermarket and you would find simple things like pulps, like passion fruit already pulp and put there, or things like cutting in terms of your fresh salad bowl. So you could get a fruit bowl, you could get a salad bowl. So simple things, basic preparation is termed as primary processing. So things like sorting, grading, and packing things a certain way so that a housewife can take this and go home and create something. Like there could actually be things like vacuum pack, sweet potato, vacuum pack, a wide assortment of vegetables, vacuum pack, where you can take that pack and just think you could brand it a soup pack. So you go home, you take that pack and you can actually use it and make soup. Just like our callaloo, because long ago you used to have the callaloo that you have to go in and you buy and you strip off and you wash and then you cut. So callaloo is packaged in a way that it can actually be convenient. There are many other things that can be packaged in a way that can be convenient so that you can take them home and maybe just microwave, add. And I'm not talking about ramen because a lot of people buy ramen because it's convenient, but is it at healthy? Because we are talking, if you're talking food security, you're not only talking about feeding the tummy, but you have to think about food and nutrition security. So if we have stuff here or produce here that we can make convenient, I mean, gone are the days when you used to go to places like Marketing Board, then it was named Food City, where you could get vacuum seal in Dasheen, vacuum seal Edos, vacuum seal banana. So if you get home and you have to make a soup, you just slice them and you make your soup. And that is what you talk about convenience, right? And it seems like you're slipping back in time because we're advancing in years, but you still have, you don't go to the supermarket and find these things vacuum sealed. If you find frozen vegetables, is what we are imported. So you hardly find locally frozen wrong provision. And then we wonder why youths are not eating these things because they have no time. And a career-driven woman have no time to go home and create peel dasheen, peel Edos. Yes, they may like a boil up, they may like some sort of soup with these sort of things, but they're not available in a convenient way. So if you're thinking about generating an income, you have to think about convenience, right? Secondary processing. When we talk about secondary processing, this stage involves turning primary processed raw material into more complex. So you're talking about things like baking, frying, mixing. So let's say we created some banana flour. So we slice the banana, the green banana, we sun dry it, and then we ground it into flour, right? We can put that there, simple primary processing, right? Drying, put there. But then we can actually add more value to that. So you can take it and you can create things like waffle mix. You can create dry cake mixes and all those sort of things. So someone will grab a pack, take that pack home, add egg, add milk, add water, add oil, just like you would do the imported cake mixes, put it in the oven and bake. But then here you have a cake mix that is a bit more healthier than the white bleach flour that we import, right? Now we have banana flour that has iron, vitamins. As you know, it's a resistant starch. So it's really good for the tummy and those sort of things. So just think about having our local produce turn into something that we can actually utilize here. We often talk about, yes, there's not this available, this not available, but then it starts with you. You have the access to the produce, so then utilize it. I mean, well, I say last semester, but back earlier this year, I did a session with a group in Barley, and I remember one young lady made cassava chips, and I never realized cassava chips could have taste this good. I never had cassava chips before. It was really delicious, and she could give Salanders a run for their money, right? So things that we have locally, and there's this church in Beckway Pentecostal Church. They make the best sweet potato chips. So we have local produce, turn them into something, right? Have anybody ever tried to utilize Mafobea blog and try making the chips? You would never know how it would taste, right? So utilize what we have to generate an income for ourselves. So tertiary processing is ready to eat foods. So just like I talk about the chicken, the chicken may be from a local producer. You take it and you turn it into a rotisserie chicken. You grab and you go. So you go home and you have dinner there. So you have chicken. You may buy vegetables in terms of the bowl that has the salad bowl, and you have a dinner right there. I remember on my last leg of study in Trinidad, I normally used to go to Massey, and I could have bring home everything that I needed that was ready to eat. So I would have macaroni pie, not baked. So I would pop it in the oven to bake. I would have a lasagna, not baked, pop it in the oven to bake. Then you would have the chicken already baked and those sort of things. So you have to think convenience. Start small, think big. But things like those even chitri. I was talking to a lady who's doing a session right now with me in Barley, and she's talking about creating chitri mix, to have on the supermarket shelf so that you can grab a bag out the frozen section and you can just go home, defrost it, and you fry your chitri. Or even if you're traveling back to America, you grab a couple of frozen packs, you take them back with you, and you'll be able to do these sort of things. So you have to think and remember convenience. So right? So classification of food processing, right? There's mechanical processing, these things that have techniques like milling, grinding, pressing. These are where you can make things like tea bags if you're grinding, flour if you're milling, pressing if you're going to do things like oil and those sort of things. Just some example. And then you have chemical processing where you're going to add preservatives. So you're going to add your sorbic acid, your potassium sorbate, your potassium metasulfate, your sodium, the one that everybody does be making them, sodium benzonate and those sort of things. Or if you're doing your cured meats, right, you use the right salt, right? Because we realize that the meat that we import that are cured are nice and pink, especially when we look at our pigtail. But when we corn pork, it's brown, and sometimes it has a funny smell because of oxidation. So we normally just use regular salt, but we have to think about using salt like potassium nitrite so that it could have the nice pinkness and those sort of things, right? So research is very important. Thermal processing, and when we talk about thermal processing, we are talking about pasteurization in terms of things like canning, blanching when you're going to make your fries. I mean, in Tobago, you can go and get things like dasheen fries, cassava fries, sweet potato fries, and we have all these things locally available here, but we do not turn them into fries, but we love English potato fries, right? I mean, even in Guyana, there's a lovely half-ripe kind of plantain fries that is very delicious that they normally serve with fish. So we have all these things available, and we have to think about utilizing them. It's not about just slicing them and putting them in a bag, but blanching at the correct temperature so that you can actually, when you freeze it, it doesn't have this set of water in it and have ice crystals that would, when you fry it, it will suck up a lot of oil. So you have to do a lot of research so that you can get these things done properly, right? So some example of food processing in agro-processing. So you have processing techniques, and I just mentioned some of them: canning, drying, juicing. These are some common methods that are used in the Caribbean to preserve abundance of seasonal fruits and vegetables. Some other Caribbean examples in Jamaica, you can go in the supermarket in other countries and you can see canned ackee. You can see canned breadfruit in brine. From Trinidad, you have dried mangoes and those sort of things, and red mangoes, sweet mangoes, and you can name it. Different types of mangoes, mango chutney, and so on. We normally do a passion fruit juice processing here, and that is used for local consumption, right? Other things you can do, you can process your cereal and pulses, milling into flour production. Use what we have, cassava flour. We make, well, a guy here make a wide range of composite flour. So he have cassava, he have potato, sweet potato, that is breadfruit, plantain, banana, and so on, right? Cornmeal is produced in Jamaica because they use traditional dishes like festival, dumplings, cornmeal porridge, pigeon peas processing in Tobago, Trinidad and Tobago, as they use in popular national dishes like your pillau and so on. And there's later on, I will tell you about some other pigeon peas processing that we can do, right? So what are some of the challenges in agro-processing? One, limited access to technology and infrastructure, because we don't have an area here where we can go and say, let's process something for the day, or someone is there to guide us in terms of processing if we want to do some jams, some jellies, make some ice cream, anything like that, right? And then even if we decide to get into processing, our home most time have outdated equipment. So many agro-processing industries in the Caribbean rely on outdated equipment and techniques, which can be very limited, and efficiency is not there, and the product quality could tend to be low. Because most people who do well, not everyone who does pepper sauce and so on, oftentimes it's either maybe a home blender or a high-speed blender. There's one or two processors who have a commercial based blender, and some of these processors also still fill these bottles with funnel and cups. So the day they're knocking, no one, you've been in the business so long of making pepper sauce, why haven't you invested in a manual, a bottle filler, right? It could be manual, it could be automatic, but you need to make your investment, right? Some other challenges: high cost of technology, right? The cost of modern agro-processing technology is sometimes very high. Like if you want something as simple as a color meter, right? If you want something as simple as a color meter to check to see when your product is on the shelf for a while, when you're going to have a color change and all these sort of things. Now, a small agro-processor would not want to invest in this because this will run you about $200-300 US. So, but if you want to create a proper product, then you will make your investment. Or if you want something like automatic or a digital bricks meter, that might run you 100 and something US dollars. So the cost of technology or to actually make proper or quality products sometimes tend to be very high, right? Poor infrastructure, inadequate transportation, and that is one in terms of getting your produce from one area to the other. Sometimes can be very tedious. The person who may have the produce that you want to make a product, it can be very tedious, and by the time that produce get to you, it may be damaged and half may have to be dumped. So I'm talking from experience. Like last weekend, I needed some guava so that my class could make some guava cheese, and my guava had to come all the way from Rose Hall, and it came up in a van, and it had to leave by someone in town for me, and by the time I get to that guava, most of it was just time for dumping because it was soft, it was starting to ferment, and I had to just dump most of the guava, right? So inadequate transportation and all these sort of things, right? Right. Also, you can have things such as inconsistent supply of raw material. Like right now, there's a guy who wants me to do some mead for him, and mead is what you make. What is like fermented honey. So it's like a honey wine, but he wanted one with a hint of passion fruit, and he cannot get fresh passion fruit anyway. So that's another problem. There's an inconsistent supply of raw material, right? So if we have these raw material available, then things might be a bit better. So inconsistent raw material due to seasonality or things like post-harvest loss or dependence on imports in order to make most of our products. Some other challenges: lack of branding and marketing, because a lot of people, like I've met a lot of people on my journey in teaching agro-processing, and you would hear some of the products that they make, and you're wondering, so how come I never heard about this? I don't know. Do you have a Facebook page? Do you have an Instagram page? How is it marketed? So there's a lack of branding and marketing. So many local agro-processors lack the resources and expertise to effectively brand or even market their product. So sometimes the product stays with them. Not only branding, but they even lack the correct guidance in pricing their product. So sometimes you hear the price of the product and you ask, so $5, how much is in the bag? How much grams is in the bag? Nothing, I just fill it. No, that's not how you go about doing business. So each container, just like when you buy the juice that you import, each package having how much grams or whatever. You just can't go and say, let me fill the bag and put some in. Same with in simple things like our tambran ball and our fudge and our sugar cake. We just basically make them, drop them in terms of the sugar cake, and then we package them and sell them. So they're not sell based on, okay, this is the cost of my production. I spend $20 for this amount of coconut and all the ingredients to put in here. I am going to sell a 5-gram piece for $2, and I'm going to cut every one of them at 5 grams. So I know from this $20 investment, this is how much I'm going to return. This is going to be my return. We don't do that. A lot of agro processors do not do that. They just drop this the sugar cake and a heap, and then it solidify and they package it. Same tambran ball. Sometimes you look at the tambran ball, one big, one small, and it's not in terms of actually doing a business. They're still doing a little hobby, something to keep them going. You must think of whatever thing that you do as agro-processing as a business. Whether you are making a CMOS gel, you must know how much pounds of CMOS I use, and at the end, how much grams or how much bottles with how much grams of gels I am going to get. It should not be, let me see it fill to this mark. No. Like, for example, sometimes you buy bottles and it says 200 ml, but if you try to fill it using a scale, using 200 ml, you would see the bottle is holding more than 200 ml. So if you have to get it up to the bottom mark, because everybody think around the bottleneck area is the ideal area to fill it. Sometimes you fill it to that line and you have 275 ml. There you go, losing 75 ml, but you don't see it as a business, so it doesn't really bother you, right? Other challenges in processing, food safety and quality standards. You must comply with standards, right? That is very important. You visit the Bureau of Standards, get the information that you need as it relates to standards and so on. Even when you're doing your process, you must follow HACCP standards. Have your HACCP standard, have your flow chart so that you can follow your flow chart, create a checklist so you can check it off so that you can know every time I create this product, it is going to be consistent. You must have also a standardized recipe. So if in the event that you cannot create the product and your daughter or your son has to create the product, because based on the standardized recipe, you can give it to them and they would be able to replicate the product and get the same quality. But oftentimes, I have listened to agro processors. They have no weights, they have no numbers, they have nothing. They just do it by guess. Oh, this is the right amount. Even with using things like preservative, you would hear someone say, oh, well, I did a bucket of pepper sauce and I put like, yeah, a spoonful of sodium benzoate. I don't know who they're trying to kill and those sort of things, but they have to know. I am very particular where I purchase my local stuff from, because no one is going to give me anything that I didn't need to get, right? Training and education is very important. Training and education in terms of things like food safety, right? Good manufacturing practices, HACCP practices, and all these sort principles and all these sort of things. So having access to this is very important. So sometimes small scale agro processors, they lack the resources and the knowledge, so they just go about doing things haphazardly. So any way you can find training and education as it relates to product development and food safety, you should actually take it if you are into agro processing. Traceability is another issue. Another thing, right? So they make 20 bottles of pepper sauce. There's no batch number. There's no record. There's no checklist. There's no flow chart. So let's say in that batch, you while creating that batch, you realize, yeah, you went into the kitchen with the earrings and what's not, but at the end, earring missing. You don't know if it dropped off outside. You don't know if it went down the drain. You don't know if it's in that batch, right? So following proper food safety standards in terms of removing jewelry and those sort of things. Have a batch number on your batch just in the event that something happens to that batch, right? You're not sure if you add something, you're not sure if something dropping. You can go to the supermarket, or you can safely remove that batch rather than having to move everything off the supermarket shelf and recalling everything. So batch number is very, very important. And record keeping. I don't know what is wrong with humans or even Vincentian when it comes to record keeping. There is no record keeping, so there's no traceability. You cannot look back and say, well, on the 3rd of June, I made 40 bottles, and these were the 40 bottles, batch number, this, and they were sold. So if you're saying now that you have some sort of, you found this and you follow your checklist, you must have something. That traceability is very important. Even in simple farmers don't keep records. They don't have any traceability. They don't know when is the last time they sprayed something. They just guess, but it's when Mary cow did die, yeah. at its spread, but they have no method of keeping records, and that is something that we have to change, right? Traceability is very, very important, right? So you can follow along the supply chain, right? Environmental and sustainability concern, waste management, very, very important, especially if you are in agro-processing. The last thing you want is a bunch of produce that you finish using either the skin of breadfruit, the skin of what pile up in front of your gate outside. Find a proper way of disposing your waste so that it would not become environmental hazard in terms of smell, maybe dropping into the drain, causing blockage, and yeah, so all that must be taken into consideration, right? Other challenges, competition and market saturation, right? Listen, the market for pepper sauce and green seasoning is fully saturated. Nobody make another green seasoning and another pepper sauce. We have too much, and we're still importing, but we have too much. We have Haas, we have Becca, we have Kelly, we have everybody. We have enough pepper sauce. We don't need one more pepper sauce on the shelf unless it's going to be a passion fruit pepper sauce or some fruit flavored pepper sauce. Something besides what is there. We don't need that. I must congratulate people like Kelly who decided to do other things with a green seasoning in terms of adding things like turmeric and Watson, giving you a different taste and so on, right? So no more pepper sauce and green seasoning. We have too much, and they have all different color, right? So when you are into agro-processing, you must be a critical thinker. You must say, if I have, so I have a lot of mango, what am I going to do with it, right? You have to think outside the box, and you have to think outside the box fast, right? So you can't just be like, oh, Mary, just make juice, so now let me try juice. No, in agro-processing, try not to copy what everyone do. Try to be your own. You have to be creative. You have to be innovative, right? So let's say, this is a picture here. Let's say you have some corn, lots of fresh corn, you have seasoning, you have pumpkin. What can I make with something like this? You may say, I just going to boil the corn, I'm going to use, or I'm just going to take the pumpkin, make some soup, throw in the corn. No, think about a product that you can make, even that you can actually sell it on to individual, or you can package it, freeze it, and maybe sell it. So everybody, well, not everybody. So this is something that is known in most Caribbean islands. So people call it pay me, some call it conky, right? Some people call it dukana, but it's made from corn, right? Young people not going to make this, but they like to eat it. So the older folks who know all these things, you can take it, make it, package it, vacuum seal it, and put it at Massy in the supermarket in the frozen section. Same thing like what individuals are doing with Modongo. Modongo is something that is done on the northern part of the island, and I love Modongo, but ask me to make Modongo bakes, I may make something beside Modongo bakes. So I would buy Modongo bakes frozen from individuals who know the techniques of making Modongo bakes, and they saw opportunity and they utilize it. So there are many other things. There are things you can do, put in the same dukana. All they're doing is making the mix, putting it in a bag, vacuum seal it, freeze it, put it in the freezer section. Trust me, I don't even think you have to bother about shelf life, because nobody going to pass, see dukana mix, see potato pudding mix or even conky mix in the supermarket frozen and not grab a bag to take home, because these are things that we like, traditional foods that we like, but we do not have the time. Nobody going home and grate sweet potato, nobody's going home and grate coconut and everything just to make something that you like. Convenience is what sells. So the individual who have time on their hand at home and looking to generate additional income, these are some things you can do. Let's say you have this, some aloes, some pineapple, some mango. What are some things you can do? You can make wine. You can make a jams, jellies. These are some things. So you must think outside the box, right? What you can do with these sort of things, right? Let's say you have some simas, you have a lot of green mango, especially pall-over mango in the back of your yard, and you have spices. What can I do with it? Simple things. You can make something that would be on the shelf for a longer period of time, and that would be convenient to people. So you make a simas mix with, you can flavor it with your mango and so on. So you dry mango. So what you do, you have your simas, you have it there, you dry it. After dry it, you blend it. If you have a high powered blender, you sieve it, right? Sieve it, get it to a nice fine consistency. And then you have your green mango, you peel your green mango, you slice it, you dry it, you dehydrate it, either sun or if you have access to a dehydrator. Then you ground it, you sift it, you turn it into mango powder, and then you mix all of them together with spices, and there you have a mix. So if you were feeling to drink some Seymour sponge, you just place some in your blender, add some water, mix it, or put some in a glass, add your water, and you mix it, and you add your sugar, and you go about your business. You add your milk if you want to add milk. This is up to you, however you would like to drink it, but it is in a convenient way that anybody can grab a pack and actually utilize, right? So you have to think convenience, because convenience do sell, right? You have honey, you have some cassava. Yes, you can make granola, you can make chips, you can make anything. So you have to think outside the box with what you have. You have to be critical thinkers, right? You have excessive pigeon peas. It's Christmas. Everybody does have pigeon peas. You have green, you have dry pigeon peas. After harvesting all the green pigeon peas, there's a lot of dry pigeon peas. And you already store enough that you can plant back next season. What you do with the excess? What would you do with something like this? Right? I know we'd use a lot of split peas powder between our roti or between our wraps. So you can use the pigeon peas and make it into a powder or flour and put it between your roti. It's high protein, lovely protein. And everybody, I love pigeon peas, so everybody would love pigeon peas. So you put these, you can even put some in your dumpling when you're making your soup. So you find different ways of adding protein to your diet, especially when you have abundance of things like pigeon peas, right? So you utilize it in different ways. So you don't just leave it, they let weevil come in and eat your pigeon peas, and then you say, oh, I lost all my pigeon peas. It's your fault, right? So some example on underutilized West Indian commodities. Pumpkin, I don't think it's fully utilized. I know we can make pumpkin flour, and when you make that pumpkin flour, you can take that pumpkin flour and make pumpkin fritters because it has all the nice flavor there. So you add all the spices, you add your egg, and you just have your pumpkin fritters right there, right? Plantain, I think, is underutilized. All the plantain chips that we do locally, nobody mimics it. We mimic everything because plenty of us love to make everything we see online. So we love Shein, any hot style come out, Shein, whatever the case may be, but nobody is studying about what is in the supermarket shelf and what kids like. Kids like Lay's. Lay's are barbecue flavor, they're sour cream, they're cheese flavor, but yet we want to give them this hard, dry, bland plantain chips every time with a bit of salt in it. No, we have to think about ways of sprucing up our plantain that we are using to make chips. So our chips should be flavored going forward. Think outside the box, right? Pigeon peas is underutilized. Sorrel is not fully utilized. Five finger can be utilized for so many other things. Sea grapes can be utilized because I had some nice sea grapes jam. Sea grapes can be used to make wine. Sea grapes can be utilized to make a lot of things. Golden apple, again, underutilized. All people is doing is just eating it or making juice. You can make jams. You can make chutney. You can make so many other things. Aloes, underutilized. Coconut, underutilized. These are just some examples of underutilized West Indian commodities that I think we can utilize and add more value to it. Like a few weeks ago, I found a pack of nuts, mixed nuts. Well, it didn't have in peanuts because I'm allergic to peanuts, but it was a blue pack from Sunshine and it had toasted coconut in it. And I was smiling because I remember a few years ago, while experimenting, making some granola, I put in some coconut and I had the toasted coconut sliced just like that because I know that is also something that you can utilize coconut to do. And it's here I am now buying a pack of mixed nuts with toasted coconut, and these are things that we have coconut dropping left, right, center, and nobody is using it to do anything. But I digress. Right. So we decide we're making product. We have to think about quality. Quality is very important because when you purchase something that is imported, one of the reasons why you buy it for quality. And we have to think that along the same line that we can produce products that are of high quality. So when you're talking about producing quality, first important thing, beside having your standardized recipe, you must have a standardized recipe, you must have a flow chart. Flow chart is very important to know the steps that you're going to do. And along that flow chart, you must have things like your critical control point, where you're going to add what you're going to do. And when you're creating a flow chart, you're not going to say, bring to a boil. Bring to a boil, you leave your daughter to make this product and you bring to a boil. She could leave it boiling for a long period of time and then it would defeat the whole purpose. On your flow chart, or it should indicate things like heat to 85 degrees Celsius or heat for 22 minutes, something along that line, right? Bring to certain temperature, then add your bricks, add your sugar, then I'll add the whatever preservative that you are going to add, right? So these sort of things should be on your flow chart, right? So that you can follow these and have a quality product, right? So when you talk about quality, you talk about appearance, the size, the dimension, the volume, the weight, and so on. What product, whatever, depending on the product, you're going to talk about things like the texture in terms of firmness, softness, crispness, thickness. I mean, there are times when you buy some potatoes, some plantain chips, and trust me, it could remove your molar in it. It could remove your molars them in the back of your mouth. But you know, you just say, at least I support a local, and you just toss it aside. So we have to think about the correct texture when we're making things like chips and so on, right? Flavor and taste. Oftentimes, sometimes you buy a local juice. This week, you buy the juice, it's nice. Perfect amount of sugar, not too sweet, nice and tart. Next week, you go back, oh my Lord, the juice came from central water because it's mostly water and sugar. You understand? And there is no tartness, there's no taste, and you're there drinking and you're thirsty, but you have no clue what you're drinking. But you're looking at the bottle, yeah. I'm drinking sorrel. But when you drink it, you don't taste sorrel. So you have to think about quality. Every batch of juice that you make must be the same as the last one, right? Aroma and smell, right? All these things are important. Clarity, the amount of suspended particles that you may find in maybe your wine or your juice, or using the right strainer to remove some of these particles, especially in things like carambola juice and passion fruit juice, because these particles can actually start getting brown and makes your juice look this color over a period of time, right? So how do I test my quality? I just showed you one of them. You can use a color meter. A color meter would measure the color, the appearance. So like say you make a batch of pepper sauce. And I want to really stress on the pepper sauce, because sometimes you go into the supermarket and you see pepper sauce, and these pepper sauce are of 4 and 5 and 6 different color from the same one company. The same, well, let me don't say company, the same one agro-processor, right? Because you would not find that in those companies that produce pepper sauce. But the same one small agro-processor would have the same pepper sauce, the same recipe they're allegedly using, but it have many different color. Reason why sometimes you will have red peppers, hot peppers, and then another time, oftentimes they think more about the money rather than the pepper sauce itself. And this time you have green peppers. I'm using all of this because Christmas coming up and I want to buy a new phone. So yes, I'm using all of this to make my pepper sauce. And then you have different colors, different variation of the same one product on the shelf. So when you have a color meter, you measure your first product, and this is the color that you want, you record it. You record it, right? And then every batch that you make, you use your color meter and ensure that you have that same numbers. The LAB that you record is recorded in every batch. Also, you use your color meter. Let's say you want to see how long this product can stay on the shelf before it starts changing color. So obviously, yes, you keep a samples or some few samples from your batch, and you start doing testing every week, every 2 weeks, see if there's change. And then you know when it gets to a certain level, this is the time that my pepper sauce should be off the shelf. So if you're talking quality, these are things I would do, right? Then a consistent meter, or what we call a viscosity meter, right? This will measure the viscosity or the thickness of how your product flow, right? If you're making things like pepper sauce, so this week it wouldn't be like planker, and then next week you know it coming out like planker, so you turn it too fast, and then it's like central water, so all the pepper sauce run out into your bowl with the chicken. So consistent meter would help you to determine what is your consistency in terms of the number that you look for every time you create this product, right? Another thing, your vernier caliper, right? This will just measure the thickness. Like if you're doing things like chips, Yeah, right. You take a few samples and ensure that this is the same thickness you're using every time. Because the thickness could determine in terms of how it's fried. You may be putting in all different thickness, some fried good, some start burning because some are bigger than some, and all. You must be consistent. So when you set up your slicer, you must know what number you have it on, and it must be consistent. A caliper is also used if you're drying stuff. So before you dry it, you measure it, and then after you dry it, you measure it again. So you know the thickness and those sort of things. So you know every batch that you do, you take some samples out and you ensure it's along that the line. So you know this is approximate the thickness of it when it's dry, it's properly dry, and I can ground it into flour. Right? So this is just an example when I was doing my mango powder. So I measure it before dehydration and after dehydration. So I can record this is how much the size, this is the size. And I can record after water loss, this after dehydration, this is how much the thickness of my mango slice after drying. Every home that is in doing agro-processing, whether you're doing wine, whether you're doing pepper sauce, whatever it is that you're doing, once it has some sort of liquid in it, you should have a pH meter. When you're setting up your wine, the must for your wine should be at a certain temperature. Certain pH, so that you can prevent things like microbial growth. So anything between 3.6, 3.8, perfect. Once it's under 4.6, right? Anything under 4.6 is ideal so that you can prevent any sort of microbial growth, right? That pH, that acid content is a bit too high for certain types of microbes that might be dangerous to survive, right? So if you're doing your pepper sauce, 4.6, perfect. So it could be shelf stable. So if you're doing pepper sauce is not 4.6, then you may have to add a pH adjuster, whether you're going to add things like citric acid, ascorbic acid. Ascorbic acid is nice because it helps to keep your pepper sauce in its nice orange looking color, and your green season is nice green looking color. So you could use either ascorbic acid or citric acid, right? But you have to be careful when you're using some of these pH adjusters, especially if you're going to be using things like sodium benzoate, because if you're using sodium benzoate, you should not add in things like ascorbic acid because it can become very dangerous, right? So anything under 4.6. So for pepper sauce, this was a passion fruit pepper sauce. So there you have it, it's 4.3 was the pH. Right. So other things you can use for adjusting, you can use vinegar and those things to help to adjust it so you can have the proper pH. But sometimes you don't maybe want to add any more vinegar because it's already, the consistency is already a bit too runny. So then you would have to use a thickener. So you could use something like, a lot of people use cornstarch, which after in breaks down after a while in heat, right? So you can use things like xanthan gum, which will not break down and would help to keep all of your ingredients intact so that it doesn't separate during while it's on the shelf. So you wouldn't have the pepper sauce with the water or the green season with the water or the oil or whatever it is you use to help you fill that bottle floating above, right? So if you're doing things like wine, you must invest in things like a hydrometer, right? A hydrometer is important so that you can measure the starting gravity and then the final gravity. So you can do you subtract subtract the final from the starting gravity, multiply by can't remember, it's 113, whatever, I can't remember what the case is, maybe somewhere in the PowerPoint, and then you will get your alcohol percentage, right? This will help you to determine the alcohol percentage so that when you are bottling and labeling, you can say 13% alcohol, 12% alcohol, and so on. So a hydrometer is very important. They have these that you can use manually, and they're also digital hydrometer, which you may see later on. I'm not quite sure if I included any, where you would see how it's easily used. So you just drop it into the MOS, and then it's registered on your phone and you can record it. Another thing that you need is a Brix meter or Brix refractometer when you're doing jams, jellies, wine, and so on, right? Reason why you need this, let's say you're buying pineapple or passion fruit from someone, you must check the Brix, because if the Brix it's not a one size fit all, right? Sometimes the Brix what a pineapple, a passion fruit can be as low as 7, and another time it can be 17, because some may be sweet, some may be sour. So that would determine how much sugar you would add, especially if you're making wine, and you want to make a dry wine, you don't want to put too much sugar, then it's going to become a dessert wine, because they would have residue of sugar remaining. That's why it will become a dessert wine. So all these things are important, especially if you're making some jams and you're using passion fruit that is high in bricks, it's very sweet, and you're using the same amount of sugar. Then you realize it start crystallizing before it should not be crystallizing. Then you realize after while cooking it start crystallizing. All these are important why you need to have a bricks refractometer to measure the sugar content, which is the bricks, in your fresh produce before actually processing it, right? So we're getting close to the, talking about after you finish making your product, you should have a sensory evaluation, right? Now, when you're doing a sensory evaluation, try not to use your friends, because sometimes your friends would lie and say, yeah, it tastes good. And then they're saying, yeah, let you put it out there. Let you know the nonsense out there. But if it's a friend who's going to give you a rough feedback and say, yeah, this tastes good, but, or you should try this, or, but you just stick to typing in the office, because you will kill people. You will get them food. This tastes real bad. Oh, you just cook for your husband. So somebody who would give you the correct feedback, right? So in a sensory evaluation, it could be very simple, like this, where you create a chart with emojis, and then they could click and say whether they like, dislike, don't like very much. Or it could be one with head on scales, where they could say it's awful, the fragrance from the drink is awful or bad or is good, or the drink aroma or the acidity of the drink. Or if you're making ice cream, you could talk about the homogeneity, if it's actually together or you're eating more ice than ice cream, those sort of things. Someone who can give you proper feedback, right? Yo, farmer. Okay, moving along fine. So we're getting into food preservatives and additives and the calculation, which is very, very, very important, right? So when selecting a food additive or food preservative, you should select one that is local, right? Availability is very important, especially to cut down on your cost of production. So select one that is important over one that you have to import, right? But if you have a special product and you have to import that food additive, then you have to go ahead and import that food additive. Try not to substitute with something that would make your product of lower quality, right? Suitability of the additive for the food, it must be known if it's compatible with things like your pectin in your jam. Can additives be added in a liquid, or if it's a powder, you're going to get the preservative in whatever form. You must know what you need for your product, right? Your processing condition in terms of the pH, right? Because most, not all, I shouldn't say some, preservative work based on certain pH. So if the product is a certain pH, you add in the preservative, it's only to help to keep it in a stable form at that pH, right? The temperature also is very important, because you can add preservative to a product that is supposed to be in the fridge and you leave it on the counter outside. Obviously, it's going to spoil. So temperature is very important, right? You must also know the regulation. Like, for example, sodium benzoate, you should only add 0.1% of the weight of a product that you're making, nothing more, right? So it's not a situation where you're going to add a handful, or let me sprinkle some. This look like it enough. Let me store it in. No, it's not that. You have to know the weight of your food in terms of your recipe. So you got to know if you use 6 grams of water, 2 grams of water, 2 grams of essence, whatever the case may be. Calculate that, get a total, and add 0.1% to that of whatever product that you're making, right? So some examples of preservatives. So there's benzoic acid, there's calcium sorbate, there's potassium nitrates, sodium benzoate, citric acid, table salt, cooking vinegar. These are just some examples, right? How do you go about calculating the required amount, right? So some notes to import, to take note of. One, you cannot use a teaspoon or a measuring cup, because sometimes you use a teaspoon One may give you a metal one, a stainless steel teaspoon may give you a different weight than a plastic teaspoon, right? Sometimes the quantities are too small, so you have to actually have a microgram scale. And I was to bring my microgram scale, but it's in the kitchen. You must have a microgram scale. You cannot use a regular digital scale because the quantities that you're going to measure are so small, you would not get it showing up on the digital scale. So then you may add too much. So once you are using preservatives, especially things like sodium benzoate, potassium sorbate, you must have a microgram scale, right? Because in most cases, you're only using 0.1 up to, or 0.2 based on whatever the preservative is, right? As I mentioned before, you cannot measure food additives using a teaspoon or a cup measurement, right? For example, if we weigh 1 tablespoon of citric acid using a plastic baking teaspoon, and a stainless teaspoon, this is the different result that you would get. So the plastic teaspoon of citric acid was 4.4 grams, whereas the stainless steel was 3.8 grams. So it's not correct. It's not accurate. So you would have to use a microgram scale. Okay. Also, you may have situation where some are powders and some are rod shape and some are looking like salt, crystal-like. So if you use a teaspoon, you would have different measurements, right? So simple, calculating the amount of additives or the amount of preservative to add to a formulation recipe is calculated based on the percentage of the total weight of all the major ingredients, right, in the recipe. So this is one example. So we have water, sugar, pear juice, carrot puree, xanthan gum, citric acid, and so we need to know how much sodium benzoate is going to be added. Now, because it have carrots and pear juice, sometimes these don't, carrot juice, when you make it, it's separate. So you add the xanthan gum to keep it in the ingredients together, so you won't have that separate. And the citric acid is added because most of these juice are they're bland, they don't have any sort of acidity. So the citric acid is added so that you can have a certain pH, and also the pH, and also to give it a nice taste, right? So you want to know how much sodium benzoate should you add to this product. So use the kilograms. So what you're going to do with any recipe, any household recipe, you're going to convert them to 1 unit. So whether you're going to use pounds or you're going to use grams or you're going to use kilograms, you're going to convert every one of them right down to the water, right down to the nutmeg to 1 unit. So let's use if we're going to use the kilogram, if you add all of these up, you would get 10.06 grams, right? So calculating the amount of additives, note that all the weight, including the liquid, has to be changed, as I mentioned before, to 1 common unit. So either, as I mentioned before, pounds or ounces or grams or kilograms. So let me move to the next slide where I did the calculation. So if you calculate everything here using the kilograms, you would get 10.06 kilograms. So you take that, so you put 0.1%, which is the sodium benzoate, right? So 0.1%, normally have my marker. I don't have it here, my pen for my thing, right? So 0.1%, so you can write this down, which is the sodium benzoate, right? So whatever preservative you're going to use in the package will tell you how much percentage of the weight of the product that you use. Sometimes you see propionic acid that you normally use in things like cake and those sort of things that you're going to have in the frozen section for a while. You would see 0.3 to 0.4. So you would use that. So 0.1 over 100 multiplied by the weight of your product that you're making, which is 10.06. If you multiply that, you will get 0.01 kilogram. That is how much sodium benzoate, but you will not use that. Now you have to convert it back to grams, which will be easy to weigh on your digital, on your microgram scale. So 1 kilogram is equal to 1,000 grams. So 0.1 kilogram So I left off a 0 here. So it's supposed to be 0.01 kilogram multiplied by 1,000 is equal to 10 grams of sodium benzoate. I will make my correction here because when I was typing out this morning, I just put it like I made an error. So once you multiply that by 1,000, it will give you 10 grams of sodium benzoate. So now you will take your your microgram scale, measure out 10 grams of sodium benzoate, and you add it to your 10.06 kilograms of juice. And there you have your juice. It will be preserved, and you package it and distribute wherever you have to distribute, right? Always remember, when you're using preservative, always use the least amount required to get the job done. Many additives work well when there's a lower amount, right? So use the lower amount. So sometimes you see a package would say between 0.1 to 0.2, use the lower amount. Always start using the lower amount, right? So use the lower amount, pay attention to how the additives is calculated. That is if you're calculating on the percentage of flour, because when you're using propionic acid, you only calculate the additives based on the amount of flour that you use. Or if you're using something that is going to be to reduce things like oxidation in certain oils and those sort of things, based on the fat, you calculate the preservative based on the percentage of the fat. So always stay within the law, right? And to wrap up, I'm just going to show you some examples of products. Well, I'm on time tonight, first time in my life. I'm going to show you some examples, some products that you can do just to stimulate your interest in terms of what are some products that you can create. Some of these were done by my last group that I taught at Barley Technical Institute, and I'm currently teaching a new group that would be exposed to other things, right? So things like planting. This was a planting that fell down during Hurricane Beryl. Bear with me, most of my videos normally have songs because I normally take my work and turn them into TikTok so I can share it with individuals.
Yeah, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. Can you feel the fire running through your veins? Now you're burning brighter. Don't.
So that was simple, taking a bunch of plantain and basically peeling it. You know, you sanitize, wash it, and then you peel it, and then you put it in the sun, and it dries, and you basically turn it into flour, and that flour, you can use that flour and make so many things. I mean, it makes a nice cake. You can make it to make cake and make it to use it. I once used it many years, well, when I was experimenting a lot in my soup in terms of using plantain flour. I made plantain, my dumpling from plantain. If you're going to make bread with composite flour, you can't knead it because it doesn't have gluten. So if you have allergic reaction to gluten, these are the exact flour that you should use. You can make bread, but you have to use the bread attachment that comes with your hand mixer, and mix it and then pour it into a pan and put it to bake. The next video, I think, is a video on banana wine.
This is how we roll. You know what it is. How we roll. You know what it is. Like that. That's just how we roll. How we roll. You know what it is. Like that. Crazy. It's been a minute since I've been in it. Swimming in it, you should be living in it. Keep your hands all over me and never worry. Keep you coming, that's how you love it. Who cares if we in public? When it comes to you, I'm with whatever. You know why? I won't give you up. I know what you like. Get ready.
All right. right? So that's banana wine. And if you look at the picture, the clarity and everything is nice. So it's a perfect wine for exportation. It's not only going to be something that you can sell locally, but regionally and internationally. Because when you're creating a product, you must think about quality, because you should make what you would like to buy. The next one is sorry liqueur. Christmas is coming up. Sorry liqueur. And if you notice, except in the banana wine, I did, because that was done with students. Most of my video, I would try to put in the ingredients that you use in making your products. So I think the ingredients.
I'm so excited, it's already weekend. We keep it 100, yeah, we never pretend. Can my friend and your friends, them be friends? See that sky level, girl, they're whining different. Girl, I wine so different. Girl, I wine so different.
Right. So in the next video, it's gonna be bonbons using chocolate bars, not bars, but blocks of chocolate to make bonbons. I can also make chocolate from scratch, but having access to a malanger, I have not invested in malanger, because these days it don't even make any sense that I'm invested in anything, because I teach more than I actually get to create products for myself.
I'm addicted and I just can't get enough. 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 Honey got me running like I'm Flojo. Signs a name on my heart with an XO. Love so sweet, got me vexed though. I wanna wish her right back like presto, yes. Meantime, I wait for the next time. She come around for a toast to the best time. We LOL back and forth on the text line. She got me fishing for a love, I confess I'm something about a smile and a combo. Got me high and I ain't coming down, yo. My heart's pumping out louder than electro. She got me.
So with things like chocolate bonbons, what you can do is I know we do import a lot, especially at Christmas time, Valentine's, Mother's Day. I don't think that's something we do for Father's Day. We don't give fathers any love in terms of chocolate, but we do import. So what in a case like this, what you do is utilize what we have local, because some of the filling that you would see there would be things like sorrel ganache or passion fruit ganache. You can even do, well, caramel is something that we normally import. So we can just do a caramel and you can add other different things. You can even do tamarind, you could do guava and all these things. So utilize what you have local as a filling. So you could either do a gel filling or you can do a ganache or anything like that. The other video is some mozzarella cheese that was done by the Barley group as well. Most of these, all of these videos that I was showing, that was done by the last group at Barley Technical Institute.
I'm addicted and I just can't get enough. 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 Honey got me running like I'm Flojo. Signs a name on my heart with an XO. Love so sweet, got me vexed though. I wanna wish her right back like presto, yes. Meantime, I wait for the next time. She come around for a toast to the best time. We LOL back and forth on the text line. She got me fishing for a love, I confess I'm addicted.
Right. So in wrapping up, just show you some other products from other countries that can maybe stimulate your interest. Here we have sweet potato waffle mix. All these are made from composite flour. When I say composite flour, I'm talking about flour from sweet potato, dasheen, breadfruit, and cassava and plantain. So you have pancake mix, waffle mix, breadfruit waffle mix, dasheen waffle mix, and sweet potato waffle mix. And these are dry mixes. So you add in your salt, your sugar. What if you add in need any sort of little spice in it, because you don't need a lot of spice in things like waffle. Matter of fact, you don't need any spice at all, but in case you want to spice it up and give it a different flavoring and those sort of things. And what we did when we did at Barley, to prevent it from clumping together, we actually use arrowroot starch so it can actually remain flowable rather than clumping if any situation of any clumping would have occurred, right? And vacuum sealed it. These are some other examples out of Tobago and Tobago as well. So you have things like tamarind sauce, you have plantain flour, you have sweet potato flour. Some of these are used into making things like dry cake mixes, because you can make dry cake mixes, so you can take it and just add oil, add milk, add egg, whatever the case would be. There's sea grape jam, there's pickled products, there is cassava fruit cake, and I do know the sweet potato flour and the cassava flour is very, very lovely. It makes a lot of great product. But in case of making a black cake, the sweet potato flour and the cassava flour makes a lovely, lovely, lovely black cake, right? Or fruit cake. These are just some other things like cassava mash, vacuum pack cassava mash, cassava fries, dasheen fries, and so on. So there are other things that you can do, right? I'm always in Tobago. Tobago is like my second home. I love Tobago. So if you hear me talk, I would always talk about Tobago, right? So you have Tobago cassava bread, right? You have cassava meal, which is like the meal is there, and they have things, they can make things like cookies, the dasheen meal, the plantain meal. You can even make porridge mixes from all of these. For like example, the coast part that is remaining, you can sift it, grind it again, package it. In that package, you can add in things like coconut milk, sugar, spices, and you just add boiling water, cover it, let it stiff for a bit, and then you uncover it, and there you have a nice porridge, easy to eat. Because as I mentioned, convenience selling, you have to think about ways to make whatever you have local being available to everyone in different forms, right? These are sponge cake from cassava and plantain flour. So it's a dry mix. So these dry mix, it will tell you what to add butter, add baking powder, add eggs, whatever the case may be, right? This is mango jam, sea grape jam, just showing you examples of things. One of the things I like that is normally held in Trinidad, Tobago every year is the Blue Food Festival, and Blue Food meaning dasheen, and they create a wide range of things from dasheen. So here you have dasheen liquor, dasheen punch cream, pepper sauce. I had dasheen sponge cake, or the dasheen black cake was to die for, and dasheen bus up shot in terms of putting the dasheen itself in the paratha, dasheen punch cream, because sometimes you're making punch cream and you need it to have a bit of body. Added in the dasheen would help it to give you the body, and it's I don't know, dasheen and alcohol together somewhat gives it a smoother taste, and it doesn't have that lash of alcohol in your throat, so it tastes nice and actually smooth, right? So you have sea grape wine, you have wine made from the peas, the shell, the pea shell or the peas husk. They use it to make wine, sea grape wine, cashew wine, dasheen wine, and so on, right? Dasheen black cake, dasheen sweet bread. These are just some examples of things that I would have bought and I would have eat in Tobago, and I could tell you from what I ate, they taste really, really well. These are just some pictures from Barley, where you have passion fruit and banana wine, and I think in the background here we have some sorrel liqueur and passion fruit liqueur. Then you have some mozzarella cheese, the cassava chips I was raving about, that tastes really, really good. To the bottom here, we have some chocolate cake mixes made from cassava and plantain flour, and you have your wine, right? And that is the end of my session. I'm open for questions. I think this is the first presentation I did and completed before before 8 o'clock and even ahead of time. So I'm open for questions.
Thank you so much, Mishka. It was definitely a very eye-opener to see the amount of stuff that we can use. There are a few questions in the chat. One of them is asking, is 5-finger good to consume?
Everything you consume in moderation, to be honest, right? There are people who indicate, I've never had any problem with 5-finger. I eat 5-finger. I actually love 5-finger, and I eat 5-finger every time I can get my hands on 5-finger. So maybe there are folks who have certain I don't want to say allergic reaction, because I know of some folks who said they eat it and over a period of time it affected their liver and those sort of things. But everything you eat in moderation. I like the sweeter 5-finger, and I've never had any side effect or any problem as it relates to 5-finger.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, would someone need to be certified to produce these products?
Certified as in having what? Explain that certified, because certified could be many things. Like you can have a certification in food processing, or you might need to have a medical certification in order to do food processing, or you might be certified in terms of being able to follow HACCP standards. So certification goes many ways. So you have to be specific.
I guess Alberta will speak to that effect, or she could type it in the chat, or she can
Alberta,
unmute.
Alberta, you just finished your training. You can produce your product and you can go to Bureau of Standards and get your label certified so that you can produce. Alberta is a young lady with the lovely cassava chips, and I hope she put it on the market very soon. So start getting your stuff out there. Just go to Bureau of Standards, create your label so that they can certify your label and proceed.
Thank you. The next one is, what's the name of the preservative that causes cancer when mixed with vitamin C?
Right, sodium benzoate.
Well, so far that's all the question that's placed in the chat. If you know you have any more questions, you can unmute and proceed with your questions.
Yes.
There's
Good
an
evening, Miss Edward.
Hi, good night. I'm not hearing you.
Yes. You hear me?
Yes, very faintly, but I can. Go ahead.
My name is Rita from St. Lucia. Miss Edward, every single thing you show there, it is very important, and I hope some of us learn a lot from it. Because a lot of us don't know what is ground provision can do so much for you. Banana, green fig, yam, dashing, we can do so many things with this kind of ground provision. Because we can do flour with it, we can cook it different ways, you can do fritters, we can do cakes, we can do many things. It's creative.
And that's true. And St. Lucia is a country I actually do admire, because you all have this sweet potato granola and the breadfruit granola, and you also, I can't remember the name of the person who does the plantain jam and the breadfruit jam, because you all utilize that. I think it's in St. Lucia is the first place I actually saw mango ketchup.
Oh yes, and
yes, at Bayshore Mall.
They do banana ketchup also.
Yes.
And it is very creative. We can do, it's creative is the best things in everything we do. People think you can just cook breadfruit and eat it. Breadfruit, you can use breadfruit different ways and you will not know it is breadfruit.
Right. Example in Hawaii, no part of the breadfruit is wasted. The breadfruit is used, run through a meat slicer, sliced in circles with the gut and everything in, and it's deep fried and served as a chip and even as a taco.
Yeah. Did you know you can make pizza breadfruit?
Yes. I had it.
Oh,
yes.
And I don't think a lot of people know you can make breadfruit pizza. You can make roti with it.
Yep.
Like sada roti on the whatever on the tawa, we call it that in the Indian tawa.
Not only the sada roti, but we can also replace the potato, the English potato inside, and add breadfruit.
Right. Everything is we have there is we just don't know how to use
you see,
it.
until we start thinking, until we start thinking about gastronomic tourism, a lot of these things would not be utilized. We often forget that tourists don't come to our island for sun and beach and what's not. They come for an experience. I will tell you this. When I go to Tobago, I go for experience. I don't go to Tobago because it's sun. I'm in a Caribbean island already, so I know about the sun, I know about the beach. But when I go to Tobago and I go out to do deep sea fishing and I pay $120, I may never catch a fish because I've never caught a fish. But at the end of the day, I can say I did this. I am going for experience. I go there also for their Blue Food Festival because I love to taste different dishes and those sort of things. So once we think in the Caribbean, in St. Vincent and St. Lucia and St. Kitts, if we have to push tourism more forward, we have to think about gastronomic tourism, especially in the rural area. If your rural area have a lot of mangoes, you can have focused products around mango so that when the tourists come, they're coming there. I mean, I'm coming to St. Lucia in December, and I've already pinpointed some things that I want, places I want to go, because I think there's something about some cassava, bam that has different flavors and all these sort of things.
That's in
So
Florida.
that is an experience for me. So that is one of the reasons I would want to go and visit that place, because I researched, I found it, and I said I have to go, because so tourists just like us would go for an experience. So we have to think gastronomic tourism in terms of, as I just mentioned, in the different rural areas where it's mango, you have a mango, everything mango, mango rice, mango jam, mango jelly, mango wine, green mango juice, everything. So when the tourists come, they're coming to your outlet, your location, because they're going to have a whole gastronomic experience in mango. Right? So we have to think about that, because agriculture does just not stop at just primary produce or even at just at agro-processing, but also create an experience. Like when we live in this part, I am living in the central area. When I leave here and I head to Oya or Fancy, so that I can partake in the Modongo festival, that is an experience for me. So those are the things, and that's the way we have to think about if we want to generate income. And tourists would pay for an experience.
It is true, because when you look at it, Miss Edward, you see in Trinidad, if nothing is not wasted in Trinidad, every single thing these people in Trinidad know how to create something with it. Because I travel to go to Trinidad a lot, and I go different places, and I say, wow. So I learn a lot from there. As you were saying about the cake, the fruit cake, you will never expect is the Dachshund fruit cake, or breadfruit fruit cake, or whatever, and things. A lot of things you learn in there.
Yep.
Not wasting air. I find in St. Lucia, we're wasting a lot of things, a lot of things. To me, we are, as you say, a tourism place, and we don't have enough local. To tell you the truth, I don't see we have different places of they're doing things, not too many local. As you say about the cassava, that's the only place doing different cassava flavor. That's in Anslore. You go there, you get in the raisin, you get cherry, you get smoked herring, different kind. They do different kind of cassava. They're doing with some ginger, and it's a flavor of everything. You understand? So I'm looking forward to see you December when you come. I must meet you. I really like the session, because that is my kind of thing I love. Yes. But that was a very fantastic session. All was nice. Everyone was great, but it is good. All right?
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you. I kind of missed a few questions. One of the questions were, can we farmers enroll in the program at the Technical Institute?
Oh my Lord. I laugh because this is my last one. I really cannot be journeying to Barley Technical Institute every time. But I will tell you this. Come next year at the Technical College, we are going to be offering a Train the Trainers program. So where we are going to train individuals so that they can go out and do the same training that I normally do. So you'll be covering courses like food chemistry, biochemistry, and post-harvest technologies, those sort of things, so that you can eventually go out and offer the training that I do. Trust me, traveling from Annisville to Barley is not an easy journey, and I cannot promise anyone I am going to continue doing that unless it's going to be somewhere central, and it has to be very close to home, because getting home late night from Barley is not an easy journey. So, and even being down there on Saturday, so I work Monday to Saturday, and Sunday is my only rest day. So I can't promise that I would be continuing this training. I need some rest.
Thank you. Another question is, do these products that you display contain any sort of preservative? And
That I've
what's the
displayed tonight, no, they don't
I'm
have any sort of preservative.
Well, I'm assuming it's from tonight. And what's the shelf life of most of these products?
Well, the wine is actually that is alcohol itself, so it can last for a long period of time. I've never done the shelf life of any chocolate because nobody keep chocolate in their house for a long period of time. The others like the mix I have done the mix before back when I did a project back in 2015, and outside the fridge up to 6 months I didn't see any sort of change in terms of spoilage, clumping and those sort of things. But then I put them in the fridge after a while, and over a year ago, and I still had those flour, and I also had those mixes.
The next one is for someone who is interested in using meat to turn into other products. Is there an institute or training that you can recommend?
At the Barley Technical Institute, they're currently doing training in fish processing. I'm sure that they might continue. I'm not quite sure, but I can find out further for you. I know about fish. About other meats, locally, I cannot pinpoint any place or anyone who would be able to offer that training in meat processing right now. But I can keep you posted, Miss Wilkinson.
Okay. Beverly is asking a question. She's asking, is there anywhere in St. Vincent that does agro-processing course are offered for adults at least yearly?
Well, as I mentioned, the college would be doing something around that line next year. Barley Technical Institute, the two time it was offered there, I'm the one who actually facilitated the training. I'm not quite sure if anyone else in St. Vincent offering agro-processing training.
You have few requests. Some is asking for you to leave your information as well as when you're in St. Lucia to visit the agro-tourism experience in Roseau.
All right, so I'll put my number in the chat. Oh.
So that will be all the questions that I'm seeing from the chat. I'm not too sure if anyone has any other questions.
Don't have a question, but just want to reiterate, as it was already said, to Miss Edwards, Mishka, as I would call her. Great. I'm like mesmerized is the word I want to use. Because I would always say that there's so much wastage of the fruits around us, and here I am again being encouraged to just do so much with it. So great job, lots of information, nice. You kept me captive, right? And of course there's lots and lots of things I'm interested in trying. So thank you very, very, very much for that information that you've passed on.
You're welcome.
Well, I'm not seeing any more questions being raised. So I guess we'll conclude tonight's session. I just want to thank you a lot, Miss Edwards, because it was truly an insightful and very informative session. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
All right, have a good night, everyone.
Miss
Thank
Evans,
you.
so much.
Good night.
Good night to you too.
Thank,
Yes.
thank you, thank you.